Where's John? Here I am. I get to combine several of my favorite things into this one video. Wheelbarrowing and picking on my viewers. And I get to pick on two viewers today. Before I get to my $1,000,000 idea, I'm going to buzz through this. Thank you, Mark, in Minnesota, for the donation of this nice Zoom-L telescope. It's going to double my ability to feed people in here to watch stuff during my celestial night programs. These two can now go down to the beach. Previously, this one is the only one that I would carry down to the beach because I've got two areas where we watch. We first go down to the beach because it's open to the horizon and we can see the zodiac, which just means like parade of animals or trail of animals, so it's not sinister. And then we'll come up here and share this telescope with the 8-inch Orion because that's too big and bulky to carry down to the beach. The Zoom-L, nice optics, really nice equatorial mount. An equatorial mount just means that you're able, once you get this thing sighted in, this axis to the North Celestial Pole if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, you can track objects just with one axis. Kind of proves the Earth spins, doesn't it? 15 degrees an hour. It also came with a clock drive, which is very nice. I need to balance it. It's a little front heavy, but that's okay. The optics are good. The mirror is. The eyepieces, Kellner eyepieces, not Plossels or Panoptics, which are very expensive, but nice 2-element Kellners, which do the job, I can certainly, because it's a 1.25-inch focus mechanism, trade out with the really nice eyepieces that I bought for this one. They fit. The Plossels, and then this 82-degree field of view panoramic 7-element Explore Scientific, fits right in here. I have to admit, I did switch the equatorial heads between these two telescopes. This one's heavier, has heavier eyepieces. It's seen its share of use. It still works, but it would be better on this lighter telescope. So, yep, thanks, Mark. You also updated Big Red here. Now, Rob, you're second on my hit list today. You mentioned that you were trying to talk yourself into buying an Orion 8-inch telescope. And I can tell you for a fact, they are beautiful telescopes. Not equatorial mount. They're on a sit and spin Dobsonian mount, but a wonderful instrument. Really nice view spotting scope too, or finder scope. I would suggest, because you do live in Florida and you're wondering if you have enough days of viewing because of it's a wet, damp place with a lot of cloud cover, maybe take the edge off with a 4.5-inch scope. Now, I get more use out of this than my big Orion, not just because it's lighter and easier to lug around, but it's like fishing with ultralight tackle. Finding dim objects up in the sky are more fun if it's a challenge, because a lot of this is just fun hunting, in many respects. A 4.5-inch telescope, 114 millimeter mirror, is big enough to see a lot of the Messier objects. Now, the Crab Nebula and other really dim ones are challenging. You have to have really clear skies, but for most of the stuff, like M57, the Ring Nebula, or M11, the Great Globular Cluster in Hercules, or even M82 and M84, dim galaxies, you can find them in a 4.5-inch scope. Very portable. Part of it is just, do you want to drag out a big heavy scope all the time? Although, if you've got the money to spend and you're not going to be carrying it around a lot, bigger is better. The 8-inch Orion would be good. Now, for Rob agrees, we already discussed this, but for other people, do not be lured in by the use of a computer, like the telescope, the Orion computer type of thing. It doesn't drive it. It doesn't go to, but it tells you right, left, up, and down when you punch in what you want to find. Don't get one of those things. Part of the fun is finding things. Using star charts like Norton Star Atlas or the Skalnight Pleso or other ones, don't remove that fun of it. It'll make you lazy to have a computer on your telescope. Learn how to find stuff. Learn how to use your finder scope. That's where the thrill is. I would also suggest if you get a bigger telescope, you can't do it on these because the body is just too small in diameter, a Telrad finder. They're not expensive, like 40 bucks, and it uses concentric rings like a bullseye, to zoom in on stuff. And it's not optical like this one where you get a small field of view and you're poking and trying to find stuff, which is very difficult if you want to find some dim object that's far away from any guiding stars. But it's just, you see everything when you're looking through it in a bullseye, so that makes it good. If you're going to go for a 4.5-inch scope, this is nice and we'll get a lot of use out of it, but I would suggest maybe getting a longer focal length. This is 900 millimeter, this is about 400 or so, which means the F number focal ratio on this is 3.5 and on this it's 8.8. And so, your maximum effective magnification given the same quality of mirror is going to be greater on this one. It's going to be a little greater on this one. Now, Orion makes one of these things, 4.5-inch, on a Dobsonian mount. But since it's a small unit, a light tube, you might as well get an equatorial mount. Now, on a lighter telescope, equatorial mounts aren't going to add to the price too much. In fact, Meade Instruments makes a 4.5-inch on an equatorial mount for $149, and you can count on Meade having good optics and a 1.25-inch focus mechanism. Now, I would say the longer tube is better. However, I am looking at this fine eyepiece. The manufacturer of this fine eyepiece, Explore Scientific, makes really good stuff. They offer a 4.5-inch or 114 millimeter, about the same thing, telescope with a focal length that's a little between these. It's a little shorter than this, but you can count on Explore Scientific having a really good mirror. And so that would be it. That would be probably the cat's pajamas as far as compact Newtonian reflectors on equatorial mounts. That's a little steeper in price than the Meade. That's about $200, but you get what you pay for, and definitely for the quality, Explore Scientific gets 2 thumbs up. I'm going to change this finder scope. I don't like those little finder scopes with the red dot, but that's, very minimal cost. And this is going to be ready to go. Okay, on to the $1 million idea. Let me rest myself on Relentless here. The Bureau of Weights and Measures, Wheelbarrowology. This, and I use my wife's bathroom scale, don't tell her, 290 pounds with just an average 50 feet of trail load, 17 cubic feet, 0.63 yards. So it is more than half a yard I can load onto this. And that makes it an effective wheelbarrow for trail use. Now, I do have a DR Power Wagon that I never use, partially because it broke down soon after I tried to use it, and I just didn't bother to repair it. Because, aside from being stinky and noisy and prone to breaking down, it doesn't hold as much as this. And it's also odd that because the engine and the transmission are on the bottom and then the bucket is relatively high up, it raises, and this is a jab at the flat earth people, it raises the center of relative density. But for us, we're going to say it raises the center of gravity, which makes it tippy and also adds a lot of flex if it goes over a root or something to the whole system. The brackets bend, it's just a nightmare to keep running. And so how about this? I know, and I'm going to pick on Mark again, he doesn't like the idea of an electric wheelbarrow, but with the current technology of brushless hub wheels, they use them on e-bikes a lot. What about scaling it down for this hub? Maybe you'd have to add planetary gearing because the low speeds involved in here. But you wouldn't have to have like a huge battery pack, because we're talking 10 to 15 mile a day range. And I know what you're saying, 10 to 15 miles of pushing a wheelbarrow is kind of insane, but it happens out here. Been there, done it. So that is the $1 million idea. Taking this perfectly designed box, the balance is good. It doesn't have the wheel out front like a standard wheelbarrow, so you're not breaking your back as far as lifting it. I can even load it so it's kind of negative, so it'd want to tip. The shape of the box is perfect. I've got two tipping angles. I can either tip it completely on its nose or tip it semi so the stuff doesn't dump out. It just depends. It even has side rails on here that allow me to carry 4x8 sheets of plywood to the back side of the preserve. A little hard to see because your window of vision is small, but it's an easy way to carry two 4x8 sheets of OSB or plywood on it. I just slide them in the rails and then put a rope around it and off I go. And so this box is perfect. Low center of relative density, gravity, beautiful balance. It hauls, 0.63 yards if it's all leveled off. It can support even heavier stuff than this. I've carried rocks from the beach. I have had a loop on the front of it so I could attach a rope, and then I put one of my employees in a harness, and we go about it like a sled, like a dog sled. But yeah, that is the $1 million idea. I think I'm qualified to talk about wheelbarrows because nobody probably in the world, or very few people, have pushed a wheelbarrow a longer distance in their lifetime than going from Los Angeles to Portland, Maine, over 3,000 miles. That is my calculation. Because I use this during the year too, for other stuff, including rocks and dirt. That's all. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. I'm going to release you from this formation. Have a good day, y'all.